All right, my dear children of class 12 science, we will now move to the next topic under this chapter, unit number under chapter nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. Okay, and the topic that we learn now is nuclear reactor. So nuclear reactor, also called atomic pile, or we also call nuclear power plant. Okay, now this is actually a device. This is actually a what? Device. Okay, and this device is actually used under control chain reaction. Is a device which works under what reaction? Which works under what reaction? As I said, under controlled chain reaction. You know, nuclear chain reaction are two types. One is control chain reaction and uncontrolled chain reaction. And control chain reaction is a process in which it is used in what? Nuclear reactor. That's why nuclear reactor is a device which works under control chain reaction. Okay, and this control chain reaction is basically produced in a fissionable material. Okay, now it is thus a source of control energy which is utilized for many useful purposes. And due to this control chain reaction, okay, this nuclear reactor is used for many purposes. Okay, that is like it is used for generating what? Electricity also. Okay, it is used for the generation or production of some elements also. It is also used for radioisotopes. So there are some number of what uses of nuclear reactor, and but all these uses are constructive uses. Okay, so which is used for many purposes. Okay, now the next thing that you need to know is that this nuclear reactor has number of parts. So different parts of nuclear reactor. Different what? Parts of what? Nuclear reactor. So nuclear reactor is comprises by number of parts. Okay. So one of the first part of nuclear reactor is fuel. So one of the first part of nuclear reactor is called fuel. Then followed by we have a moderator. So I'm just highlighting the different parts. So one of the first part of the nuclear reactor is called fuel. Next is what? Moderator. Then we have number 3. This is called control rods as one of the part of nuclear reactor. Then after we have coolant as a part of nuclear reactor. Then we can use another part that is called silt. We use what? Silt. And at last we go for the safety device. So these are the different parts that we can observe in nuclear reactor, and each part has their own function. Okay, now let me just highlight what is a fuel, what is the important part of fuels, and what is its role in a nuclear reactor. So fuel. Now fissionable material. You know, fissionable material means like uranium heavy nucleus, which are called fissionable material, is actually called as fuel. Okay, or actually called as what? Fuel. Like example, uranium-92, 235. Even you can take uranium-92, 238, one of the isotopes of uranium. Okay, other than this, plutonium, that is plutonium with mass number 239. These are the example of what? Fissionable material. These are called what material? Fissionable material. Fissionable. Okay, these are called the fissionable material. That means the material which is used to fission, to split into lighter nuclei, are called fissionable material. And this fissionable material is used as fuel. They are only known as what? Fuel. And this fissionable material plays the key role, a very important role in the operation of nuclear reactor. So without this fissionable material, the nuclear reactor is incomplete. Nuclear reactor is what? Incomplete, because nuclear reactor works under control chain reaction. Control chain reaction means a fission reaction. So in order to make the fission of heavy nucleus, we must have to take this fissionable material. Okay, and there are many fissionable material that we use, but commonly used fissionable material are uranium-92 to 35. It can be uranium-92 to 38 also. Plutonium-239. These are the fissionable material that can be used. But if you just look at this material, basically it should be a heavy nucleus, and basically starting from mass number greater than 230. If you say take any heavy nucleus with mass number, A means mass number greater than 230, that can be used as a fissionable material. Okay. Next part of nuclear reactor, which also has a very important function in the nuclear reactor, is moderator. We call as what? Moderator. Now, the main function of moderator is to slow down the neutrons. It helps to what? Slows down the neutron. It has to slow down the what? Neutron. So what is the main function of moderator? It slows down the what? Neutrons to what energy? Thermal energies. And you know why neutron has to be slowed down? Because for every fission reaction, what will emit? Usually the fast neutrons will emit, and this fast neutrons speed has to be slowed down, and that is done by the moderator. It is done by the what? Moderator. Okay, and this slowdown of fast neutron to slow neutron is actually through elastic collision. Some collision takes place between its nuclei and the fission neutron. And the neutrons which are emitted, called thermal neutron, that means thermal neutron means neutron or slow neutrons also. Okay, the neutron which moves at a room temperature, okay, have a very high probability of fissioning the heavy nucleus. Like if I take one of the heavy nucleus, like 92 to 35, as a fissionable material, then after the fission of this uranium 92 to 35, neutrons will emit it. Fast neutrons will emit it, but these fast neutrons can be slowed down by this device called moderator. There are many examples of moderator are there, but there are some example of moderator, and that is like heavy water. And heavy water is also called deuterium oxide. Okay. Similarly, graphite can also be used as a moderator. Okay. Beryllium oxide. Okay. Beryllium oxide. Okay. Beryllium what? Oxide. These are the moderator that can be used for nuclear reactor. But out of number of moderator, heavy water is used as a best moderator. This is used as a best moderator. Because one of the important conditions under nuclear reactor is whenever the neutron emitted, this neutron speed has to be slowed down. Okay, otherwise what happens? The reaction takes place very fast, so that the number of neutrons which emitted may cause further fission of other nuclei. Okay, that's why the most important thing that you need to do is to slow down the neutrons to thermal energy, and that is done by the moderator. Okay, and you understand this moderator part and all with the help of diagram also. So we do the construction of nuclear reactor also. But not just now we learn about the different part of nuclear reactors. So this is the second part of nuclear reactor. Now we have next nuclear reactor. Okay, that is called next part of nuclear reactor, that is called control rods. Now basically control rods are nothing but the rods of what? These are usually the rods of metal like cadmium. Okay, the rods of metal like what? Cadmium, or it can be used of made up of what? Boron also. So control rods are nothing but the rods of what? Cadmium or what? Boron. And this is used actually what? These rods are used to control. These rods are used to what? Control, okay, the fission. It is used to control the fission rate in the reactor. So what is the main function of control rods? Okay, in a nuclear reactor means it is used to control the fission rate in a reactor. Okay, if the fission rate is not controlled, then what happens? This nuclear reactor, that means chain reaction will not be obtained. Okay, under that case the nuclear reactor cannot be used. That's why whenever the rate of reaction is to be controlled, that is always done by the rod known as control rods, and this control rod, as I said, is made up of cadmium or boron. Okay. Now these rods are actually fixed on the reactor. So in a nuclear reactor, these rods are basically fixed. Okay. So that's why there are a number of control rods which are fixed on the nuclear reactor as a wall. And this cadmium and boron are only why we use as a control rods, because cadmium and boron are the good absorber of slow neutrons. Cadmium and what? Boron. Cadmium or what? Boron are the what? Are the good absorber. Listen carefully. These are the good absorber absorber. Okay, they are the what? Good absorbers of what neutron? Slow neutrons. Now the speed of neutron is decreases by the moderator, and that slow neutron is controlled, is absorbed by the what? Which rod? Cadmium rod or what? Boron rod. Okay, that means they are simply called as control rods. So why cadmium or boron is used as a control rod means because they are the good absorber of what? Slow neutrons. So under nuclear reactor, when these rods are pushed into the reactor, the fission rate decreases, and when these rods are pulled away from the reactor, the fission rate goes up. That means the rod has to be inserted in, pushed into the reactor, or to taken out has to push away from the reactor. Okay, so under this case, what happens? The rate of reaction can either increases or decreases. But this, with the help of this control rod, we can simply control the rate of fission reaction takes place in the reactor. So this is one of the important part of nuclear reactor. Now we have next part, that is called coolant. Another part of nuclear reactor that is also plays a very important role, okay, is called coolant. And you know, when the nuclear fission reaction or control chain reaction takes place in a nuclear reactor, what will evolve? Energy will evolve, and this energy will be a large amount of energy which will evolve. Due to that, the energy which is released inside the nuclear reactor is actually in the form of what? Heat. So whatever energy is released, energy released inside the what? Inside the nuclear reactor. Energy released inside the nuclear reactor is in the form of what? In the form of what? Heat. Okay, in the form of what? Heat. Now, and this heat is removed by the coolant, and this heat is only removed by the what? Coolant. This heat is removed by the what? By the coolant. So what is the main use of coolant? It is a device, okay, a part of nuclear reactor which remove the heat that is generated, huge amount of heat that is generated inside the nuclear reactor. That's why in a nuclear reactor, to use this coolant, so we use coolant like water can be used as a coolant. Okay, carbon dioxide can also be used as a coolant. Okay, air can also be used as a coolant, but mostly we can use water or carbon dioxide. So water or carbon dioxide can be used as a what, etc., as a what? Coolant. So we use coolant in a nuclear reactor. And what type of coolant we use? Like we use either water or we can use carbon dioxide. Mostly these are the things that we can use as a coolant in a nuclear reactor. Now we have go to the next part, that is called shield. This is called shield. So shield is another part of a nuclear reactor. Now you know what happened? Along with the heat which is evolved in the nuclear reactor, some amount of rays, the intense ray, the highly effective rays can also generate in a nuclear reactor. Like there is the emission of gamma ray takes place, and you know gamma ray is one of the highly penetrating ray, highly effective rays. Okay, that's why the various type of intense rays are emitted from the nuclear reactor, and this ray is basically make the people to injure, and it may make the people to die also when they use under the nuclear reactor. But if this nuclear reactor is not covered by a shield, that is called concrete shield, okay, and that the people working on the nuclear reactor may simply get injured, or they may simply die also because of the intense ray, the continuous intense ray emitted from the nuclear reactor. So in order to protect them, the people working the nuclear reactor protect from this nuclear radiation, a thick concrete wall, okay, which are erected around the reactor, and this wall is usually made up of lead. So lead is one of the metal which is used for making this shield, like a wall, concrete wall, okay, because lead the radiation cannot emit from the what? Lead. The radiation cannot emit from the what? Lead. Okay, that's why in a nuclear reactor, along with this part, okay, which is used in a nuclear reactor, the concrete shield, we can use the word concrete shield, which is usually called a lead chamber. We can use a word lead chamber is used as a wall, and this will be always erected throughout the over the nuclear reactor in order to protect the people working in the nuclear reactor from the radiation and all. So children, remember this, not only the heat which generate in the nuclear reactor, some amount of intense ray can also generate. Okay, and this ray will emitted from the nuclear reactor may affect the people, may get the people injured, or the people may die if the continuous intense ray can get emitted from the nuclear reactor. Under that case, we use this shield called concrete shield. But remember, this concrete shield is usually made of what? Lead, because lead is one of the stable metal from where the radiation is usually not get emitted. Okay, so this is one of the part of nuclear reactor. Now we have last one, that is called safety device. So another one is called safety device. The safety device actually is one of the case when, in case of an accident or some other emergency, a special set of control rods. This is a special set of control rods. Special set of what rod? Control rods. Okay, and this control rod is also called as sort of rod. Sort of what? Rod. Okay, is used, okay, in case of any emergency or in case of any accident, and this sort of rod immediately absorb all the neutrons which are emitted in the nuclear reactor. So under this case, what happened? The chain reaction stop immediately. The chain reaction what? Stop immediately and entirely. And such type of device which is used is called safety device. So safety device are nothing but the set of control rods which are called sort of rod. But this is used only under the case of emergency. If there is any emergency while working in a nuclear reactor, or in case there is any accident occurs in the nuclear reactor, then this type of rod is used, and this rod is actually called safety device. But remember this, one of the main advantage of this rod is this rod immediately absorb all the neutrons that produced in the nuclear reactor, so that the chain reaction stop entirely and immediately also. So that's why nuclear reactor consists of what? This device called safety device also. So I have just explained in detail about the different part of nuclear reactor, and this different part you can even observe with the help of diagram. And the diagram of the construction of nuclear reactor you will be learning in the next YouTube video. Along with that, you learn about the applications of nuclear reactor.